Greetings everyone, this is Donna Gilliland and welcome to the why and how to using PowerPoint animations. And this is something you can do hands-on with me at some point in the video, so if you want you can go ahead and bring up PowerPoint and be ready to follow along, or just watch and you can come back to it later. This is a really important feature in PowerPoint. It's often overlooked, sometimes because simply just don't know how to utilize it. So we're going to get started with animations. Now first of all, the animations feature, just in case you don't know, what does the animations feature do? Well, animations, when applied, they're actually applied to elements within a slide, content that's on your slide. Could be graphics, could be text, or, all of the above. Now, the animations that you create, you're using animations to specify the how and when slide elements appear on the slide whenever you bring the slide in. And so why use animations at all in a presentation? And one main one is that it makes what you are talking about memorable, the content memorable. And isn't that what we wanted to do when giving a presentation? You want your audience to have recall of what it is that you are presenting on. When they walk out that room, you want them to be able to remember key points of whatever it is you are presenting on. So animations can help your PowerPoint presentation be much more dynamic, and as I said, the content being more memorable. So here's an animation example, and this is where you come in. I'm going to show you the example, then I'm going to show you how that I accomplished these simple animations that you're seeing. So just to set it up a little bit for you, the slide has come in and I have the key point on the slide, which is about an animation example. And now I'm ready to bring in the rest of the content on the slide. And through animation, I'm able to control what comes in and when it comes in. So now with this one click, in comes a graphic. And with the graphic, a text box that says helps make the information more memorable. So animation has been applied to both the graphic and to the text box and how it should come in together. There's another part that's been applied here, which is to have a graphic of a brain with a light bulb in it come in to the heads of these three audience members, if you will, on the graphic. With another click and through the animation, in comes the small graphics of the brain with a light bulb. Now before I teach you how to apply those particular animations, I want to make sure you're clear on the difference between slide transitions versus animations. A slide transition controls how a slide makes an on-screen entrance. So it's applied to the entire slide. But our focus in learning is the animations. Now, I have that same slide I had on the screen a moment ago, but it's without any of the animations, and that's where the hands-on comes in for you if you want to try this out. But let me go ahead and get out of slide mode and get into edit mode. Now the beginning point of you applying animations is to click on what you want to animate. The first thing I want to animate is that full graphic of the instructor audience graphic. I want that to be animated so that it only comes in when I click. Once you've selected what you want to animate, then you need to go to the Animations tab on your ribbon. When you get there, you have a library of animation options that you can work from right there. And they're broken down by category, entrance, emphasis, exit, motion pass. We are focusing only in this brief video on the entrance piece. But I'm going to go over and use the Add Animation button. It's just a personal preference for me. I like working from the drop down from the Add Animation button. And now I've chosen Add Animation, and up comes that same list and I am working on how that graphic should come on screen when I click. On this one, I want the graphic to appear, and in a moment you will see there is a 1 on my screen, and the 1 is telling you that there is an animation, and this is the first one in the sequence. Now the second part is I want the text box to also come in with the graphic. But because it's another object, it has to be addressed. In other words, I've got to select it and choose how or what I want to do with the animation. All right, so it's selected. I'm going back to add animation. And I would like for the text box to float in. And then PowerPoint shows you briefly how that's going to look. Now take a look. Here's the 1. That's the big graphic that's coming in. Here's a 2, indicating that would be the second item to come in the sequence. However, I actually want both things to come in together. And this is how that works. While I'm on this text box, looking back at your animations ribbon, you can see that there is a group of tools that says Advanced Animation. That's where I was at on the Add Animation. On the right is a grouping for timing. And the focus in your training here is the setting that says Start on Click. That's the default, to start when you click. But I want it to start with the previous animation. Therefore, I'm going to choose by clicking the down arrow and choose that I want it to come in with the previous animated object. Now take a look, and that doesn't say 2 now, it says 1. You have 2 1s, they're both coming in together. The final piece of this is I want these images of a brain with a light bulb. There are 3 of them. I want those 3 to come in when I click. So when I run this slideshow, you'll see how it all works. Now I want all 3 to have the same animation, and I'm going to click the first brain image, hold down the control key while I click the other 3, or the other 2 rather, and there's more than one way to select them as a group, but that's one way. So now they're selected, and I'm returning to add animation, and I want these 3 images of a brain to float in, and it shows you how it's going to look. But then looking back at the timing group, it's set to start with previous. So I'm going to let you see how that works, and then if we want to make a change, you're going to learn how to make a change. But let's go with it as it is, and then we'll reevaluate it. So let me go ahead and go into show mode. And of course up comes my slide, and now I am ready to click, and the graphic of the instructor and audience comes in, as does the text box. They came in together. And then I click again, and in come the 3 images into the heads of the audience graphic. Now what do you do if you needed to make changes or something's not working as it should? This actually is working exactly the way I want it to work. But I'm going to go ahead and press escape to come out of show mode, and then the part where you would edit animation is on the advanced animation, or in the advanced animation group is a button that says animation pane. Now I do want you to know that you're not going to learn all the ins and outs of animation and the animation pane in this video, because the video is very brief. It's meant to get you started in using animation, understanding what it is and how you apply it to different elements. But when you look at the animation pane in this quick run, it's showing you what animation number 1 is set to do. You know, we have 1s and we have 2s on the screen. And when you click on one of the animation selections, this one is animation 1, picture 3, there is a down arrow for all of these when you click on them, so that you can change various settings. As you can see, the number 1 has 2 things associated with it. There's an item up underneath the picture 3 over here in the pane. There isn't a number beside it because it's associated with the main graphic. And it tells you when you click, or when I click on it, it says that it's set up to come in with the previous and that the current entrance is a float up. But when you click the down arrow of these items, you can make changes. You can even move the sequence around, which is great if you make a mistake in setting up the sequence. These are all movable. You can reorder them. When you hover over an item, you can see you get a double-headed arrow, and if you click, hold, and drag, which I'm not doing, I'm just clicking and holding, so you can see, you would start dragging to reorder the animation sequence. But ours is just fine. Now let's go do another one. I'm closing the animation pane. And let's go into show mode again. And so here's the next one, animation activity, which I had already done. So this is how it all looks. And now I'm going to the next slide. Now this is another learning opportunity. This one is going to be on how to use animation to animate a list, like a bulleted list or a numbered list. So let's get started with that. Now this is a list summarizing what has been taught in this video. And what I'd like to have happen is that when this slide comes up in the show, I would like for the bulleted items to come in one at a time. Additionally, when I click to bring in a second bullet, I'd like the prior bullet to dim so the audience's attention stays focused on the bullet that I'm talking about at the moment. And it's all done with animation. And you'll learn a couple of extra things here that you didn't learn in the last one. Now I'm going to come out of show mode and get to this slide. And this is a bulleted list, so it's a text box. It's the list. So it's a list you want to click in. And I have clicked in that box. And now I'm going to back to my add animation. After add animation, I'm going to choose that I want it to appear. That's the type of entrance that I want it to have, where it just shows up on the screen. But now I've done that, but this is important for you to note. Do you see how there's a number 1 over here on the left? There are no sequence numbers on any of the other bulleted items, and that's important to take note of because I don't want them all to come in at one time. I want them to come in separately, so you have to make a setting change. So now the animation type has been chosen, and this is where you would make your modifications. From the Effect Options button, this is on, again, we're still on the Animations ribbon, and over to the right you have a button that says Effect Options. And when you click the down arrow, it's set to bring it all in as one object because this is a bulleted list. That's the interpretation or the default that it goes with. But I want it to come in one bullet after another. And that's why you would choose by paragraph. And then when you choose by paragraph, take a look. You can probably see it ever so slightly on my screen. But each one of those bullets now has its own assigned number, and now the bullets are in a sequential pattern, and they will come in one after the other when I click. But I want to do something a little bit more. I would, again, like the prior bullet that I've already talked about to be dimmed, still visible to the audience, but not have as deep a focus as the one in front of you. So here's how that works. We go back to options. Now you notice that options has a small arrow in the lower right corner. These are called dialog box launchers in Microsoft Office programs, and it denotes that it will bring up another set of options that are not typically in the initial list. So going to that small arrow to show additional effect options, up comes the appear box, And right now, the after animation is set to don't dim, which means each bullet would have the same, the same coloring. And what we're going to do is choose the down arrow and pick a color that we would like the prior bullet to be dimmed to. Now, I do want to say this. I do have an extra gray here that you might not have if you haven't done this before, because I went to more colors to pick a little bit darker gray color, because the one in the default list is just too light for me, and too light that I think my audience still can't see it. But I did choose an additional color, and that's why it's showing here in my list already. So I'm choosing that color. It shows it in the bar. Then it says animate text. There's an option that says all at once, by word, by letter. Now this is important. I want it to stay at all at once because I want my bulleted item, all the words in the bulleted item, to be this color when dimmed. I don't want it to do this by word or letter. So I'm leaving it at all at once. Now click on OK. Now let's see how it's going to look when I run it in show mode. All right, here comes the slide. And the only thing on the slide is my title. And because of animation, I need to start the process by clicking. And I click, and in comes the first bullet. I talk to that point to the audience, and then when through, I'm going on to the next bulleted item by clicking. But take a look. You can see that the prior bullet is dimmed to the color I chose. And then the process just continues. You talk to that point, you click, the previous bullet will go dim to the color you chose, and you can see how that works. So see, that's all done with animation. All done with animation. So hopefully by this point, you're beginning to see the benefits of making use of animations in your presentation. Now here's what I'm going to do in closing. A couple of things. One, I just want to take a moment to say that there will be training coming up in a webinar, maybe a tip, we'll see, about the Office 365 PowerPoint feature called Designer Ideas. I think when you learn about that, I think you're going to love it, so stay tuned on that. The designer actually created these icons for me for these bulleted items based upon keywords, but more about that in another learning. Now let's move on and wrap up with these presentation tips. Tip number one is that when you are putting together a presentation or delivering a presentation, you should think in terms of opening with a relative and relatable story. And the reason why stories are so impactful in the beginning of a presentation is that it activates the brain, and it connects the audience. If you're doing the story correctly, relative and relatable, it connects your audience to what you are about to present. Another tip is that you should simplify with your presentations. If you have a lot of content, for example, you don't want to place all of that content on the same slide. So think in terms of 1 point, 1 page. And side note, have you noticed that, again, I'm using animation here? And slide transitions. The last point on these presentation tips is about using multiple points. So again, I spoke about when you have a lot of information, you don't want it to be all on one slide. And if there's, say, 7 or 8 points you've got to make, rather than putting it into just one bulleted list on a page, consider breaking your multiple points out by splitting them across multiple slides. It'll make it much easier for your audience to retain what you are teaching them. So that's a wrap on using animations, and this is a good start point for you. And stay tuned by subscribing to my channel, because on the channel I'm going to regularly have videos for you. If you click subscribe, then you'll be notified whenever I have uploaded a video. And if there's going to be an associated training coming up on it, it'll always be in the description part of the video. I hope you found this helpful, and I would love to hear how you're using it, or if you found the video to be helpful. You can leave your comments if you'd like. So thanks for watching. More coming later. So it's bye for now.